Let me ask you something. Have you ever been told that it's just impossible to make money online unless you have some special high-level skill? Well, today we're going to tear that whole idea apart. We're looking at a blueprint for profiting on Fiverr, even if you feel like you're starting from absolute zero.
I'm sure you've heard this a million times, right? The general vibe out there is that platforms like Fiverr are totally saturated. They're way too competitive for any new person to actually break in and make a real go of it.
But hang on a second. What if that whole idea is just wrong? What if the conventional wisdom is missing a massive piece of the puzzle and the reality is completely different?
And that leads us to what you could call the Fiverr paradox. It's this weird contradiction between what everyone thinks is going on and what's actually happening on the platform every single day.
Because you see, behind that big, scary wall of too much competition, there are literally thousands of beginners who are quietly succeeding. They are landing clients, they are earning money, and they're doing it right now.
And here's the kicker. The secret to their success? It's not because they have more talent, it's not because they have years of experience. Nope. It's because they understand one simple thing that almost everybody else completely misses.
Now, to really get this, we've got to zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. We are living through a massive, massive shift. The whole system of how we work is in flux, and the old rules are pretty much being thrown out the window.
You know the old path, right? For generations, it was super clear. You study, you get your degree, you find a nice, stable 9-to-5 job, and that's it. But that whole system, it's cracking. The new reality is all about the freelance economy and the massive rise of remote work. And the sheer scale of this is, well, it's kind of mind-blowing. The latest data shows that over 1.5 billion people across the globe are now part of the freelance workforce. This isn't some tiny trend. This is a full-blown economic transformation. Just look at the growth we've seen since 2020. It's been absolutely explosive. This is way more than a small uptick. It's a fundamental change in how people are earning their living. And yet, here's that paradox again. Even with all this incredible growth and all this opportunity, most people who want to jump in just feel stuck. They're totally overwhelmed by this idea that they just don't have what it takes to get started. Okay, so let's put all this to the test. We're going to dive into a real-world case study that we're calling the Zero Skill Challenge. Can somebody actually break through that feeling of being stuck? Let's find out. So let me introduce you to our challenger, Allie. And honestly, Allie could be any one of us, someone who's curious about freelancing but has no idea where to even begin. First off, he doesn't have those traditional qualifications. There's no fancy university degree to stick on his resume. On top of that, he's never worked for himself. He has zero history as a freelancer. No portfolio, no past clients, nothing. And here's the most important part. Allie doesn't have what we all think of as a high-income skill. He's not a coder, not a graphic designer, not an expert copywriter. He is, for all intents and purposes, starting completely from scratch. So what did he have? His toolkit was about as simple as it gets. He had a laptop and, well, he had the decision to just try. That's it. That was the most important tool in his box, the will to actually give it a shot. So this all sets the stage for a really simple but really powerful experiment. Could this challenge, which seems almost impossible on the surface, actually be beaten in just 1 week? Allie's goal was crystal clear, and let's be honest, pretty ambitious. He asked himself, can I actually make money on Fiverr in just 7 days with absolutely zero skills? The point wasn't to become a millionaire overnight, but just to prove that that first dollar was possible. So the whole thing was locked in. You've got the clear challenge, you've got the tight 7-day timeline, and you've got that crucial rule, starting with no special skills. The experiment was officially on. And this really gets to the heart of this entire blueprint. After seeing this whole setup, you have to ask yourself, what if the thing that's been holding you back isn't your ability or a lack of some skill? What if it's just the way you're looking at the problem? What if the biggest barrier to starting has been your perspective all along? Okay, so let's get right into this. We're going to unpack a really cool little story about how a simple 1-week experiment can completely shatter that awful, paralyzing feeling of being stuck when you're trying to start something new. I mean, we've all been there, right? You've got this great idea. You're all fired up. But the second you actually look at what it would take to begin, it just feels impossible. And that's exactly where this story kicks off. So picture this. You decide you're going to offer a service online, maybe on a site like Fiverr. You log in, all excited, and what do you see? just chaos. Thousands of people, and they all seem more experienced, more talented, more professional than you could ever be. It's like an instant dose of imposter syndrome hits you.
And yeah, this is what we can call the wall of confusion. It smacks you right in the face in those first couple of days. And honestly, this is the exact moment where most people just give up. The mountain looks way too high to climb, so they don't even bother taking that first step.
But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. This is the crucial pivot. The person doing this experiment realized that trying to go head-to-head with all those experts, well, that was a losing game. So instead of trying to be the best, he decided to be the simplest.
And that little shift in thinking leads us to the heart of this whole thing, what we're going to call the good enough strategy. This is the core insight, the real breakthrough that came from just totally changing the goal, moving away from perfection and just moving towards action.
Okay, this slide lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got the trap. It's that feeling that you have to learn some super complex skill, you have to compete with the top pros, and you have to deliver something absolutely perfect. It's paralyzing. But on the right, that's the blueprint. Pick something simple, serve other beginners, and just aim for good enough. Now that is something you can actually do. So what was this super simple skill? Designing YouTube thumbnails using Canva. It's kind of brilliant, right? It's not about becoming a Photoshop wizard or a design guru. Nope, it's about using a simple drag-and-drop tool to give real value to someone who just needs a decent thumbnail. And they need it fast.
And this right here, this was the whole philosophy, the whole mantra. The goal was never to create some masterpiece that would win a bunch of design awards. The goal was just to make something that was good enough to get the job done. And, way more importantly, just good enough to get started.
So, with that new strategy in place, we get to the really tense part, taking the leap. This is where the plan gets put into action, and it's followed by what must have felt like the longest, most nerve-wracking 48 hours of just waiting.
I mean, just look at how simple these steps are. There's no crazy 50-page business plan here. He just created the gig on the platform, set the price at a can't say no $5, and then he waited. Man, that third step is always the hardest part, isn't it? This timeline really captures that tension perfectly. So, day 5, the gig is live. There's that little moment of excitement. But then, day 6 is just crickets, silence. And all that doubt starts creeping right back in. Did I do the right thing? Is anyone ever going to see this? And day 7 rolls around with just a big old question mark hanging over it. And that brings us to the climax of the story on day 7. This is the moment the entire experiment was building towards. The result that would finally prove if this whole good enough idea actually had any legs. So, after nearly 48 hours of checking his phone, refreshing the page, and hearing absolutely nothing, a little notification finally broke through the silence. And there it was, a single order for $5. Now look, $5 isn't going to change your life financially. We all know that. But that was never, ever the point. This tiny amount of money, it represented a massive psychological victory. And that's the absolute key takeaway. The $5 was proof. It was real, tangible validation that the system works. It proved you don't need to be some world-class expert. It proved you can start small, offer something simple, and that someone, somewhere out there, will find it valuable. So what do we really learn from all this? Well, first, simplicity almost always beats complexity, especially when you're just starting. Second, a good enough project that's actually out there in the world is infinitely more valuable than a perfect one that's just stuck in your head. And finally, a tiny piece of real-world proof that's so much more powerful than the most detailed, most elaborate plan you could ever write.
And that really just leaves us with one final question to think about for yourself. What's the simplest, smallest step you could take to get your own little piece of proof? What's your version of that $5 order that proves your idea has legs?
You know that feeling, right? You've got this awesome idea for a side hustle, a new project, and you're just staring at a blank page. You're totally paralyzed by that one single question: where do I even start? It's a feeling that kills so many incredible ideas before they ever see the light of day. Well, today, we're going to break that cycle.
So let's just get right to it with a big question. What do you think is the #1 mistake that new freelancers make right out of the gate? I mean, what's the one thing that separates the people who get going from the ones who just spin their wheels forever?
And here's the thing, it's probably not what you're thinking. It's not about needing some secret marketing hack or having a huge budget or knowing some super complex skill. Nope, it's actually way, way simpler. It's just a tiny shift in how you look at the whole thing, but it's a shift that almost everyone misses.
And this brings us to what I call the beginner's dilemma. See, it's this crazy pressure we put on ourselves to be the best, to have the absolute perfect service, the perfect website, the perfect everything from day one. And that drive for perfection, it just creates this impossible standard that leads to overthinking and then nothing, total inaction.
Okay, so now I want to tell you a quick story about a freelancer named Ali, because it just cuts right through all that noise. He had this breakthrough, not because he found some secret formula, but because he stumbled upon 3 really simple truths. And it wasn't a hack, it was a totally different way of seeing the game. So here's Ali's first truth. He realized that on platforms like Fiverr, it's not a competition to be the undisputed #1 best-in-the-world expert. The trap is trying to be the best. The truth? It's about being visible and being useful. That's it. If people can find you and you can solve their problem, you're already halfway there.
And that idea flows right into the second big mistake. Most of us, when we start, we just massively overcomplicate things. We think we have to offer these huge, complex, super expensive packages to prove that we're worth it. But weirdly enough, that usually does the exact opposite of what you want.
And this chart, man, it just shows it perfectly. This was Ali's second big insight. Just look at this. See those complex, high-priced gigs? That bar is pretty low, right? They just sit there with hardly any orders. But the simple, clear, fast services, look at that bar. It's way higher. They get the ball rolling, they get the reviews, they build momentum. Simple almost always wins at the start.
Ali's third truth is maybe the most important one for right now. In this economy, speed matters so much more than perfection. Seriously, think about it like ordering a pizza. When you're starving, do you want some gourmet Michelin star pizza that's going to take 3 hours? Or do you want a really good hot pizza at your door in 30 minutes, right? Most clients are just hungry for a solution and they want it now. Being able to deliver a great result fast, that's a superpower. So what happened when Ali actually put these 3 simple truths into action? Well, the transformation wasn't what you'd probably guess, but it was way more important. And it happened really, really fast.
How fast? This is it, 7 days. That's the entire time frame we're talking about here to go from being completely stuck to actually making progress. This wasn't about months of planning, it was 1 week of doing. And let's be super clear about what happened in that week. Ali did not become a millionaire. This is not another one of those get-rich-overnight stories, because honestly, that's not the point. The real victory was something totally different.
He became something more important. He became someone who started. Just let that sink in for a second. He broke the cycle. He took that first step. He proved to himself that he could actually do it. And that, right there, is the biggest hurdle any of us will ever face. And this really gets to the heart of it all. Because the biggest failure in life, it isn't failing to reach a goal. It's not trying and messing up. The real, true failure is never even starting the journey in the first place.
So look, Ali's story isn't just a story about some other guy. It's a mirror. It's supposed to make us ask ourselves that same question. The exact same opportunity he saw. It's right there, right now, and it is wide open for the taking. And make no mistake, this whole thing is not some little trend that's going to fade away. The freelance economy, the creator economy, it's getting bigger every single day. More and more businesses, from tiny startups to huge companies, are looking for people to help them with stuff. Editing, design, coding, marketing, you name it. The demand for useful, fast help isn't just growing, it's exploding.
So we end up right back where we began, with a simple choice. It's really the only choice that matters. After hearing all this, after seeing the path, the question for you is simple. Are you going to stay on the sidelines watching, or are you going to get in the game and become someone who starts?
If your answer is start, I want you to make it real, right now. Drop the word START in the comments below. And if you want more insights just like this to help you on your way, make sure you subscribe. The time for just watching is over. It's time to begin.